They saw your silence and called it weakness. But they had no idea they were standing in front of something God was still preparing. There's a reason you clicked on this. Out of all the videos, all the noise, all the distractions, you landed here. This is not a coincidence. God brought you here because deep down, you've felt it, haven't you? That quiet tension in your spirit, that unexplainable feeling that you were meant for more. But everything around you kept trying to convince you otherwise. People doubted you. They overlooked you. They dismissed you like you were nothing. Some even tried to break you, to silence you, to make sure you never rose above the version of yourself they were comfortable with. And for a moment, it almost worked. You stayed quiet. You stayed hidden. You questioned yourself. You wondered if maybe they were right. Maybe you weren't strong enough. Maybe you weren't chosen. Maybe you were just ordinary. But here's the truth they never understood. God does his greatest work in silence. While they were busy underestimating you, heaven was investing in you. While they laughed, ignored, or betrayed you, God was building something inside you that they couldn't see, couldn't touch, and definitely couldn't stop. And now, something is shifting. You've started to notice it, haven't you? The way your mindset is changing, the way your patience has grown, the way things that used to break you don't hit the same anymore. There's a strength rising in you, and it's unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, but powerful. And suddenly, the same people who overlooked you are watching you. The same ones who spoke against you are whispering your name. The same ones who thought you were weak are starting to feel something they can't explain. Fear, because your transformation is exposing their blindness. They thought your silence meant you had nothing to say, but it meant God was teaching you when to speak. They thought your struggles meant you were losing, but it meant God was training you to endure. They thought your isolation meant you were forgotten, but it meant God was separating you for something greater. And now they're realizing something terrifying. You didn't break. You didn't quit. You didn't become what they expected. You became something they can't control. But here's where it gets deeper. This wasn't just about proving people wrong. No. This was about God proving himself right. Every tear you cried, every night you felt alone, every moment you questioned your worth, none of it was wasted. It was all part of a divine process, a preparation, a transformation that had to happen in the dark so it could shine in the light. And the reason this message is hitting you so deeply right now is because you're stepping into a new season, a season where your presence carries weight, a season where your voice carries authority, a season where the same people who doubted you will have no choice but to recognize what God has placed inside you. But don't rush it, because what's coming next is something most people aren't ready for. You see, power in God's hands doesn't look like noise. It doesn't look like arrogance. It doesn't look like revenge. It looks like quiet confidence. It looks like unshakable peace. It looks like walking into rooms where people once ignored you, and now they can't ignore your presence anymore. And that kind of power, it scares people, not because you're loud, but because you don't need to be, not because you demand attention, but because your spirit commands it. So if you've been feeling different lately, if you've been sensing a shift, if you've been wondering why your old life doesn't fit you anymore, understand this: you're not losing yourself. You're becoming who God always intended you to be. And the ones who underestimated you, they're starting to realize their biggest mistake wasn't doubting you. It was doubting what God placed inside you, because what's about to unfold next will change everything. Because what they called your weakness was actually God's preparation for your power. They looked right through you, like you were invisible, like you didn't matter. You remember those moments. The rooms where your voice felt too small. The conversations where you were talked over, dismissed, or completely ignored. You showed up with sincerity, with intention, with a heart that just wanted to be seen, and yet, somehow, you were always the one left standing on the outside. People labeled you without knowing you. Quiet, weak, too soft, not enough. They made assumptions based on what they could see on the surface, never realizing there was a storm of strength building inside you. And the worst part? Some of those voices weren't strangers. They were people you trusted. People you thought would understand you, but instead of support, you got silence. Instead of encouragement, you got doubt. Instead of being lifted, you were overlooked. And that kind of pain, it doesn't just pass. It lingers. It sits with you in the quiet moments. It follows you when you're alone at night, replaying conversations, questioning yourself, wondering what you did wrong. You started shrinking, didn't you? Holding back your thoughts, second-guessing your instincts, silencing parts of yourself just to avoid being judged again. Because every time you tried to step forward, it felt like the world pushed you 2 steps back. Every time you opened up, someone made you regret it. So you learned to close off, to protect your energy, to stop expecting people to understand you, but even then, it still hurt. Because deep down, you knew you had more to give. You knew there was something inside you that deserved to be expressed, to be recognized, to be valued. Yet no matter how hard you tried, it felt like you were always being placed in the background of your own story. You watched others get opportunities you were ready for. You watched people with less heart, less depth, get celebrated while you stayed unseen. You watched doors close without explanation, and it made you question everything. Am I not enough? Am I missing something? Why does it feel like I'm always overlooked? Those questions became heavy. They sat on your chest, slowly turning your confidence into doubt. And the loneliness, that was the hardest part. Because even when you were surrounded by people, you still felt alone. No one truly understood your journey. No one saw the battles you were fighting internally. No one knew how much strength it took just for you to keep going when everything inside you wanted to give up. And yet, you didn't quit. That's what they never noticed. They saw your quietness, but not your endurance. They saw your patience, but not your resilience. They saw your stillness, but not the strength it took to hold yourself together when everything felt like it was falling apart. You carried pain without making noise. You endured rejection without becoming bitter. You stayed true to yourself even when it would have been easier to change just to fit in. And that kind of strength, it doesn't come from the world, it comes from something deeper. But at the time, it didn't feel like strength. It felt like isolation. It felt like being forgotten. It felt like walking a path where no one was clapping for you, no one was encouraging you, no one was even noticing you. Just silence, just waiting, just wondering when things would finally change. And maybe there were moments you almost gave in. Moments you thought about becoming colder, harder, less caring, just to survive in a world that didn't seem to value your heart. But something inside you wouldn't let you. Something kept you grounded, something kept you moving forward, even when you didn't understand why. And now, looking back, you're starting to see it differently. Those moments when you felt invisible, they were shaping you. Those times you were overlooked, they were refining you. That pain you carried, it was doing something deeper than you realized, because sometimes being ignored by the world is the only way God can get your full attention. Sometimes being rejected by people is how you're redirected toward your true purpose. And sometimes being seen as weak is exactly what protects you while something powerful is being built inside you. So if you're still in that place right now, feeling unseen, unheard, underestimated, understand this. There is a reason for it, even if you can't fully see it yet, even if it still hurts, even if it doesn't make sense. Because what feels like rejection right now is actually setting the foundation for something greater than you ever imagined. because the season where they ignored you was the very season God was transforming you. While everything around you felt still and silent, God was doing his deepest work where no one could see. There were seasons in your life where it felt like nothing was happening. No progress, no recognition, no clear direction. Just days blending into nights, and nights filled with thoughts you couldn't escape. From the outside, it looked like you were stuck, like you were falling behind, like you were being left out of something bigger. But what you couldn't see then was that you were never stuck. You were being shaped. Because God doesn't always build in the spotlight. In fact, his most powerful transformations happen in isolation, in the quiet places. In the moments where you feel forgotten by the world, but held closely by something greater. Every time you were alone, wrestling with your thoughts, something inside you was being strengthened. Every time you felt rejected and had to pick yourself back up, something inside you was being refined. Every time you held back tears, kept going, and refused to break, something inside you was being built, and it didn't happen loudly. There were no announcements, no applause, no validation. Just you and the process. And that process was painful, because growth like this isn't comfortable. It stretches you. It forces you to face parts of yourself you didn't want to confront. It brings your insecurities to the surface, not to shame you, but to heal you. To remove what doesn't belong. To strip away every false identity you were given by people who never truly saw you. You had to unlearn the lies. The lie that you weren't enough. The lie that your voice didn't matter. The lie that your worth depended on who accepted you. And unlearning those lies. It takes time. It takes silence. It takes moments where you're pulled away from the noise so you can finally hear the truth. That's why the isolation was necessary, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Because if God elevated you before healing you, the weight of that elevation would have broken you. If he gave you power before building your character, you would have lost yourself trying to prove something to people who never mattered in the first place. So instead, he slowed everything down. He removed distractions. He separated you from environments that were draining you. And yes, it felt lonely. It felt like abandonment. It felt like doors were closing and nothing new was opening. But in reality, it was protection. You were being protected from becoming someone you were never meant to be. And in that quiet space, something incredible started to happen. You began to change. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a deep, unshakable way. Your mindset shifted. Your tolerance for negativity decreased. Your awareness grew. You started seeing things clearly. People, situations, even yourself. You began to value your peace more than approval. You started choosing growth over comfort. And slowly, without even realizing it, you became stronger in ways that don't always show on the surface. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You stopped reacting the same way. You stopped chasing validation. You stopped explaining yourself to people who were committed to misunderstanding you. And that strength, it was built in silence. No one saw the nights you fought your own thoughts. No one saw the moments you chose discipline over giving up. No one saw how many times you had to rebuild yourself from the inside out. But God saw every second of it. Every tear, every effort, every silent prayer you whispered when you didn't even have the words. And he didn't waste any of it. Because this kind of transformation, it's different. It's not temporary, it's not surface level, it's the kind of change that shifts your entire identity. The kind that prepares you not just to survive, but to lead, to influence, to walk with a presence that people can feel even before you speak. And the reason it had to happen this way, in silence, in isolation, in the hidden places, is because what God is building in you isn't meant to be fragile, it's meant to last. So if you've been wondering why your journey feels so different, why it's been so quiet, why it's taken longer than expected, Understand this. You weren't being delayed. You were being developed. Every moment of pain had a purpose. Every moment of loneliness had meaning. Every moment of silence was filled with unseen progress. And now, something is about to shift, because what's been happening behind the scenes can't stay hidden forever. Because the version of you God has been building in the dark is about to step into the light. They can see it now. The power they once ignored is impossible to overlook. Something has changed, and it's not subtle anymore. The same presence they used to dismiss now fills the room before you even say a word. The same voice they once talked over now carries weight, authority, and calm confidence. You're not forcing it. You're not chasing attention. But somehow, attention finds you because you're not the same person anymore. There's a shift in your energy that people can feel, even if they can't explain it. It's in the way you walk, steady, grounded, unshaken. It's in the way you speak, intentional, clear, without the need to prove anything. It's in the way you carry yourself, like someone who has already survived what was meant to break them, and now they're noticing. The same people who overlooked you are studying you. The same ones who doubted you are questioning themselves. The same ones who ignored you are suddenly paying attention to everything you do. But it's not just attention. It's respect, and for some, it's fear. Not because you've become aggressive, not because you've become someone else, but because you've become fully aligned with who you were always meant to be. And that kind of transformation, it's intimidating to people who never did the work you did. They remember the old version of you, the one who stayed quiet, the one who tolerated disrespect, the one who second-guessed themselves. But now, when they look at you, they don't recognize you anymore because you don't react the same. You don't chase the same things. You don't allow the same behavior. There's a boundary around you now, unspoken but strong, and people can feel it. They can feel that you're not easily shaken anymore. They can feel that your peace is protected. They can feel that your silence is no longer weakness, it's control. And that realization, it unsettles them because they don't have access to you the way they used to. They can't manipulate you the way they once did. They can't predict you, can't define you, can't place you in the same box they once kept you in. You've outgrown that version completely. And now, your presence demands a different response. Some people will rise to meet it. They'll respect you, support you, recognize your growth. But others, they'll feel threatened. They'll feel exposed. Because your transformation is a reminder of what they refuse to do within themselves. Your discipline highlights their excuses. Your peace highlights their chaos. Your growth highlights their stagnation. And without saying a word, you become a mirror they can't look away from. That's why the energy around you feels different now. Conversations shift when you walk in. People measure their words more carefully. There's a tension, a quiet awareness. Like everyone senses something about you has changed, even if they can't name it. And here's the truth. It has. You're no longer operating from a place of seeking validation. You're no longer trying to be accepted by people who never truly saw your value. You're no longer shrinking to make others comfortable. You've stepped into something deeper, something real, something unshakable. And that kind of power, it doesn't come from ego. It comes from alignment. Alignment with your purpose. Alignment with your identity. Biomeasurement with the path. God has been preparing for you all along. That's why it feels natural. That's why you don't have to force it. That's why it doesn't feel like you're trying to become someone else. It feels like you're finally becoming yourself, fully, unapologetically. And the most powerful part? You didn't have to announce it. You didn't have to prove it. You didn't have to fight for it. It revealed itself through your growth, your endurance, your transformation. So now when they look at you, they don't see weakness anymore. They see strength. They see resilience. They see something they can't control, and that makes them uncomfortable. But this is only the beginning, because as powerful as this version of you is, there's still more being revealed, more purpose, more impact, more levels you haven't even stepped into yet. And if this is how they react now, imagine what happens when you fully walk into what God has truly called you to become. Because the power they're starting to see now is only a glimpse of the purpose that's about to be revealed. You were never weak. You were chosen, shaped, and anointed for a power most people will never understand. Look at your journey, not the version people saw, but the real one, the nights you cried in silence, the days you showed up with a heavy heart but still kept going, the moments you felt forgotten, overlooked, and misunderstood. That wasn't weakness, that was endurance. That was faith being built when there was no evidence. That was strength forming in places no one could reach, because while they were judging you by what they could see, God was working in what they couldn't. Every delay had a purpose, every rejection had a reason. Every painful moment was part of a process that was never meant to destroy you, but to transform you. And now, you see it. You see why certain people had to leave. You see why certain doors had to close. You see why you had to walk alone for a season. Because if those people stayed, they would have limited you. If those doors stayed open, they would have distracted you. If you were never alone, you would have never discovered who you truly are. God didn't isolate you to punish you. He separated you to prepare you. Prepared your mind so you wouldn't think small anymore. Prepared your heart so you wouldn't settle for less anymore. Prepared your spirit so you could carry the weight of what's coming next. And now, you're stepping into a version of yourself that once felt impossible. The same you who doubted now walks with certainty. The same you who felt invisible now carries undeniable presence. The same you who was once broken now stands unshaken. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's God. God was there in every tear you cried. God was there in every moment you almost gave up. God was there when nobody else understood you. He never left, even when it felt quiet. He was working. Even when it felt slow, He was building. Even when it felt like nothing was changing, everything was changing inside of you. And now, the evidence is undeniable. You don't react the same, you don't think the same, you don't carry yourself the same. You've evolved, you've grown, you've become someone who can't be easily shaken by opinions, rejection, or doubt. And that's the kind of power that changes everything. Not loud power, not temporary power, but quiet, unshakable, God-given power. The kind that doesn't need validation, the kind that doesn't seek approval, the kind that walks into a room and shifts the atmosphere without saying a word. That's who you are now. And the most beautiful part? You didn't lose yourself to become this. You found yourself, the real you, the version of you that God always intended before the world tried to define you. So don't ever go back to doubting yourself. Don't ever shrink to fit into spaces you've outgrown. Don't ever question your worth based on people who couldn't see your value. Because you are not who they said you were. You are who God says you are. Chosen, protected, prepared, powerful. And if this message spoke to your spirit, don't ignore it. This is your confirmation. Go ahead and comment Amen. If you feel this in your heart, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss what's coming next. Like this video and share it with someone who needs this reminder today. Because your story isn't just about you anymore. It's about the lives you're going to impact, the people you're going to inspire, the purpose you're about to walk into. And trust this, what God started in you, He will finish. No delays, no mistakes, no wasted pain. Only purpose, only growth. Only power. You were never meant to stay hidden. You were meant to rise, to lead, and to walk boldly in the power God placed inside you.